Okay. Step one, take a breath. Step two, acknowledge the truth. What you are doing is really fucking hard. Now, what is step three? The truth is, we all know what step three is. Step three is different for everybody. But you know. And step three is doing the things you know you should do. But man, getting to step three is tough. And this video, I'm going to take you along the journey of this process of becoming an entrepreneur, of being self-employed, of being your own boss. Now, right off the bat, I'm going into this eyes wide open, and I want to encourage you to do the same. If you relate to this journey, and even if you don't, even if you're not an entrepreneur, but if you're just, I don't know, have a pulse, life is overwhelming, you're stressed beyond measure, you don't know how you're going to get ahead. And ahead, I mean, just simply paying bills. I'm not even talking about the Ferrari, no, just like, can you get to a place where your basic needs are met? You can, you have enough money that you can share by spillover. Like you're good, and you have extra that you can help make the world a better place. Maybe that's supporting your family. Maybe that's donating to your church. Maybe that's donating to whatever charity you feel resonates with you. Or maybe that's just simply helping people that need help. We all want this. Man, is it tough. And it's so easy. It's so easy to get caught in these golden handcuffs, to have this job that pays you just enough to keep you coming back, but is just destroying your soul. Now, I'm very, very lucky that I'm not in a job like that right now, but I was in a job like that for about 11 years, okay? And it's so easy to do that. And I'm going to leave that 11-year job just in like a little kind of box, because I don't want to talk about it too much, because I really respect the people that I worked with there. And it was a great job, and quite frankly, yeah, it's got problems, but every organization has problems. It just wasn't for me. That's really what it was. So I don't want to say their name or get too much into it for that reason. But here's the point that I'm getting at, okay? This is tough. It's really, really, really hard for this simple reason. You are going to need how do you say that? You're going to need to break through a barrier. Like, you could almost think of it like a membrane. And you got to get through that membrane, and you're going to need a lot of force to get through that. Once you're through that, you're going to have different challenges, but it's going to be a different world. And there's going to be different ways to manage those challenges, but it's a different thing entirely. The amount of force you're going to need to break through, it's brutal. And life is this way. I mean, you even think about, a sperm cell. I don't know. I'm not a biologist. It's not my area. But I do know a sperm cell a lot of them die off, and only one gets to an egg. And I know it's complicated, and I get all that. But there's a lot of force you need to break through that membrane. This is no different. Okay? So, if you are struggling and you're overwhelmed, and you're working 40 hours a week in your day job, and you're doing a little something on the side, and when you finish your day job, you come home and you're exhausted, and my space is a mess right now. I think I've got like a pair of jeans hanging over a chair in a weird spot. I haven't vacuumed my carpet in a while. It's a mess. And it's just all these little things of just managing my house, keeping this stuff organized, let alone keeping this roof over my head, which is not a guarantee right now. Unbelievably stressful. And then you compound that with just the stresses of the day job, which in my situation, I'm very lucky, are there, but are minimal. And then on top of that, you're going to run your own business. and you're going to make that business a full-time job. Just in your, like, I have these, I think this is just a human thing. So many of us, we have these goals, we have these ambitions, but we keep them in the privacy of our mind. We don't say them out loud. But when you say them out loud, just hear how insanely difficult that is, how crazy that is, how much of a burden that is. And I'm not saying this to tell you it's impossible, to tell you you can't do it, to tell you this is ridiculous, you shouldn't try. It's not at all what I'm doing. I just want you to just take a moment and understand that maybe feeling stressed beyond belief, maybe you turn to some bad habits. Like for me, I started smoking. I'm not a smoker, but I started smoking just to like get a sense of like peace, which is, in my worldview, idolatry, because peace in my worldview comes from Jesus, and I'm not turning there, turning to the world for comfort. And you don't have to believe what I believe, but I'm just getting this point though, is that take a moment to look at the plate in front of you and just see it and go, that's a big fucking plate. That's a lot. Okay? So first thing is just grace. Like, give yourself a break. Now, that can be a little dangerous. I'll get to that, I guess. It's dangerous in the sense that it's dangerous because what a break actually is strangely counterintuitive. It's not our human proclivity. We have this tendency as people to drink tonics that just amplify the pain that we're drinking the tonic to ease. You know? And I'll use myself in this. Like, I turned to cigarettes because I was so stressful. Because my life was so stressful. And then I smoke a cigarette, and guess what? Because I'm smoking a cigarette as an escape from the stress, I'm not actually dealing with the stress. So the stress just piles up, and I keep avoiding it. And then I'm stressed, so then I have a cigarette, and then it piles up more, and then you see what I'm getting at, right? And you pick the thing. I mean, we all have a tendency to do this. And so the question I'm going to ask you is just, what rest is actually restful? You know, even if you're watching this on YouTube and you're scrolling through videos, are you scrolling through videos to find rest? Or do you find yourself just watching a video, and you're at the end of it, you're not recharged at all. You still don't have energy to do the things you need to do. So the question I want to ask here is, what rest is actually restful? Like, what can you do that's actually going to give you a break and a reprieve and enable you to take on this whole gauntlet that you've got in front of you? Now, that's a hell of a question. I got to be honest with you. I've been thinking about this all wrong because I haven't asked that question. I've just filled up my plate and thought about all these things I got to spin and make them all work, and I can't do it. I just can't. And I think part of it is because I haven't found this rest idea yet. I haven't really found that. You know, even as I'm talking to you, I have these little Zyn pouches in right now. It's nicotine. Now, I can justify that. I can say it's better than a cigarette. Like, not smoking cigarettes, blessing, great. But it's still a crutch. It's not rest. It's not rest. It's escape. And we can talk about what you're escaping from, maybe. Maybe that's worth talking about. But maybe for a different video. For this one, I want to have empathy and compassion and understanding for people that are coming to this video, because if you're coming to this video, you're probably at your wit's end. You're probably exhausted. You're probably drained. And maybe you're starting to doubt if it's even possible for you, that it's even within the cards that you're actually going to get to a place where you can share by spillover, that you can have enough resources for yourself to feel comfortable and also share. And I'm not even And when I say leftover to share, I'm also including investing and like for your future retirement, all those things that we have kind of labeled in our culture as quote unquote normal or doing well, right? Um, First of all, just think about this for a second. How long in human history have we had refrigerators? Like not very long. Like I'm not a historian. I don't know. I don't know how long we've had the ability to stockpile food and meat products in freezers and things like that. I can't imagine it was a very long time in the span of human existence. What I would say is we've all told ourselves that having a refrigerator filled with food is normal. That's crazy. In the span, like vast majority of human existence, having enough food to eat for weeks, that was like something for like the aristocrats, the super elite. Like that wasn't something for the average common person. Okay? So if you're struggling to put food on your table and you're struggling, we're just going to have a little reframe just for a quick moment. And I'm going to tell you this, and it's going to be hard, maybe not hard to hear, but the word accept is complicated. I'm going to leave that in a bracket because I'm not saying lie down and don't try. What I'm saying is this type of struggle, this real type of pain, of uncertainty, and not sure if you're going to make it, that is actually normal. The idea of not feeling that, the idea of just being okay and secure, that's abnormal. And so what you're trying to do, what you're pushing yourself to do, is not achieve something that's normal. You're not trying to just simply fit in. You're actually trying to excel. That's a good thing, but it's important to put that in a context here. And even in our modern era, I live in North America, I live in Canada. How many countries in the world, how many people are there out there that this kind of normal I'm describing of really, really, really struggling even for your next meal? I think if you were to really get a global average, I think the global average of people struggling just to make to their next meal and have these types of anxieties is very much normal. And so that's the first point. The second point that I want to get across, though, is that yes, I do live in Canada. And I'm going to leave all the politics aside. I know everybody wants to politicize things and do whatever you want. I'm not here to talk about that. But what I am here to say is that in a capitalist structure, it's actually possible to build a business that you can actually get to a place of excelling, of having a refrigerator full of food, of having resources, of getting to that spot. This is actually possible, okay? But we need to put that in the context of what we're trying to achieve here, okay? And I think for me anyway, a lot of this stress and anxiety, partly, yeah, it's really difficult, but the other part is this expectation, this sort of delusional sense of grandeur almost, that it's not normal to suffer, that I'm doing something wrong, that I'm a terrible person, or I'm unambitious, or I'm lazy, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I'm blah, 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 too this, you put the too fat, too short, too tall, too whatever. These two things. And all of that goes in the nonsense bucket now, because if you're watching this video, you're serious about cultivating the best version of yourself and cultivating a world of abundance around you. And if you're serious about that, it's really important to understand you don't have to learn new things. And it's hard to wrap your head around, but it's true. What's really holding you back, what's really holding me back, is all the bullshit that I think I know. It's nonsense. This is a consequence of unlearning, of letting go of things that aren't serving you. And I am not preaching to you I'm including myself in this. I'm making this video for me, and I'm hoping that somebody can relate to this challenge of letting go of unhelpful heuristics. Okay? Now, I mentioned this briefly before, that I hold a Christian worldview, and I'm going to be honest with you about that. There may come points that I talk about that because that is very integral for me in my journey, but at no point am I proselytizing to you. I hold the belief that Jesus calls people, and God brings people to himself. And if there's something in my voice, in the words that I'm using, that facilitates that calling, that's between you and the Lord. And that's not my place, is what I'm saying. That would be the Holy Spirit working, not me. And so I have no interest in converting people. So I want to make that very, very clear and just transparent, so you know what you're getting when I talk to you, okay? Okay. Whew. So here's my situation. I work somewhere in the neighborhood of, it varies week to week, on average about 35 hours a week, usually 30 to 40 hours a week. I'm a barista during the day. I'm also 33 years old, and that kind of meets a sort of stereotype, right? And sometimes, I'll be honest, there's a degree of shame I feel being a barista in my 30s. And that goes in the category of unlearning, because that's nonsense. Because I think if I took out that kind of judgment and I just viewed another human, and I went to a cafe and I saw a 30-year-old barista, I don't think I would judge him that harshly. I think I would think, if you are working crazy hours and doing everything in your power to support your family, or yourself to get into position to support your family, I think that's honorable. I think it's something to respect. I think there's a lot of people that would greatly respect somebody who knows what it's like to struggle to feed themselves, to struggle to work all kinds of jobs, scrub toilets, do all these things. There's respect, I think, for somebody putting in that kind of work. And on top of that, I can tell you that I'm not saying, I don't think that menial work, I'm using the word menial in a sort of, how do I say that? Not in a pejorative sense, but in a sense of not what I feel I've been called to do to serve the Lord. And when I encounter that, I also think in myself, I'm not unambitious. I'm not just staying here. I'm striving. And in my striving, I've hit this barrier, for this block. I'm exhausted. And I think all of that falls in the context of admiration and respect that I can have for that person if I stepped outside myself and judge that person. As much as a person can do that judiciously, which is a whole other conversation. We're not very good at evaluating things, let alone ourselves. Or others, for that matter. So step one, I think, is just simply breathing. And then step two, like I said, is just putting this in context. This is tough. It's really hard. Okay? Now, in my situation, the business that I'm working on, my avenue out of normal is becoming a magician. I do card tricks, I do magic, I'm in love with it, and I'm on my path to building this business. I've secured, which is just a miracle, I can't believe it, I've had a regular show. I do close-up magic, and I work in restaurants. So the idea is, after someone's ordered their meal, and while they're waiting for their meal, I would approach them and offer them a free show. The restaurant pays me an hourly, so I don't have to bother people for tips. And I would just simply perform and offer them a great experience, and that perceived wait time for their meal goes away. So they get the sensation of instant service. They also get an experience that's jaw-dropping, it's fantastic. And they also spread word of mouth to get people to come to the restaurant. So it's a great service to the restaurant. And I've had a regular gig. I've been performing once a week at O'Byrne's Irish Pub here in Edmonton, Alberta, every Saturday, 6:30 to 9:30. Hope I get to see some of you you there. That's an absolute blessing. I've been there for a year, almost over a year now. It's shocking. Like, what a miracle. You know, they've been unbelievably kind to me. And that regular gig has, quite frankly, I can't even tell you how many times that has been the difference between being able to eat and not being able to eat. Like, it's just been a blessing. And what's amazing is that this feeling of exhaustion is a consequence, not of laziness, not of sitting still, and not of failing. And failing, I'm putting in quotations because failing is kind of a good thing, actually. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Maybe that's part of this video, actually. But that feeling of exhaustion really is coming from how hard I'm pushing. And so the reality of getting that gig at O'Byrne's, which I'm so grateful for, is I have to check my CRM tool. Hold on a second. I think I have it right here. I reach out to, how do I filter through this real quick here? We're going to go into restaurants. I'm just filtering really quick. Restaurant Magic, all interaction, all connections. Before O'Byrne's, where's O'Byrne's in here? Is this filtered through dates? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have to filter this a little bit. I thought it was more than that. I'll have to look through that in a quick moment. I'm having issues filtering, but yeah, it was well over 10. I think it was closer to 30, but I can't remember. Like, I've reached out to a total, and do I have a filter? Yeah, 41. So I reached out to 41 different restaurants, and I'm trying to find out how many it took before I got my first booking, because I've been reaching out after since, so I have to filter through that to find out. But yeah, I've reached out to over 41 different restaurants total, and out of that, I've succeeded in getting one residency, right? One regular gig, and I'm proud of that. That's actually really good. Let's just do really quickly. 1 divided by 41 is about 2%. If you're approaching a business and saying, "I'm a magician, will you pay me?" and their response is, "Good for you for being a magician, and also good luck," that's a normal response. And if you succeed in getting a booking, 2%, like, hey, for hitting the pavement and doing that, I'm pretty proud of that. I'm pretty proud that I got that. And the more skills I learn in marketing myself, probably the higher that success rate's going to be. But this is the truth of cold calling. This is the truth of getting out in the marketplace. You're going to encounter a ton of rejection, which is not a failure. That's actually a consequence of doing the right things. But you're getting a sense of how exhausting this is when you're working a full-time job and then you're doing this as well. Okay, it's a lot. The rewards are tremendous, but it is a lot. Okay. So the feeling of being exhausted is reasonable. The other thing that I would say for my particular situation is resources are very scarce. Like I said, I'm struggling to just put food on my plate. So the idea of printing business cards, the idea of being able to buy magic, and there's so many different effects that I would love to do that I just simply can't afford to buy. So what ends up happening is there's tons of magic that you don't need to purchase props for. You actually don't need to have gimmicks for. And a lot of these gimmicks, if you read enough books, if you do enough work, you can actually build them on your own. And that's what I've been doing. And that amplifies. You think about the marketing time, then you think about the show development time, and then you think about the day job time, and then you think about just trying to keep your place clean. Yeah, being tired makes sense, okay? So when you put all of this into context, you need to understand what you're asking for here, or what I'm asking for here, which is a miracle. It's a miracle what you're asking for. And that's not delusional. And that's not defeat. That's not saying you're hopeless. That's just saying you're a person. And this is something that's very challenging. So, we're going to circle back now and talk about, I know the things I need to do to become successful. I know those things. The question is, what is going to enable me to do those things? And here's where you come in. There's something about this medium of videos. Like, nobody's here. I'm by myself, and I'm talking to myself. Weirdly, not so much. Like, there's nobody else here, but just by simply talking to a camera of not even the best quality, there's a feeling I get where I'm not really alone in this anymore. And I believe posting this journey and including you in this is something that's going to not only hold me accountable to succeeding, but quite frankly, and I say this with all due respect, I don't need you to hold me accountable. That's not the function of this video. But there is something that feels a sense of, oh, this actually matters more than just me. There's a lot of people struggling. There's a lot of people that need encouragement. And maybe becoming successful actually isn't just about me. Maybe there's a lot of people out there that just need a little encouragement or need to know it's possible, or maybe just simply, like, there's tools that I've built. I built spreadsheets. Maybe I could share those with you. Like, there's all kinds of things that this type of connection enriches me and gives me a sense of life. And it gives me a sense of rest. And it's terrifying to hit that post button and to submit this into the world. But I want to include you on this journey. So on this YouTube channel, and it's been a mess, and it's been unorganized, and it's been all these things, but here's the structure of it now. Here's what it's going to be. I'm going to post videos like this. It might get 2 viewers. This is a 27-minute video. Who the hell's going to watch this? I don't know. But here's the truth. You're going to see this journey. And my faith, my hope, my belief is there's going to come a time where this channel is going to get a large audience, and there's going to be all these videos that you can watch now that are going to be unpopular. These videos will be unpopular. But to those people that later on encounter this video, they can go back, they can watch this one. When they're at their wits' end, when they're exhausted, when they're stressed, when they just don't know how they're going to do this thing, know that that's normal. And if you can find the one thing that gives you life, if you can find the one thing that lets you know you're not alone, do that. And that's what this is. And I'm a broken person. I got these nicotine patches as I'm talking to you. I'm making mistakes this whole way. This is not a linear line, okay? But this is my attempt to correct my errors as much as I can, but also act in a way of service and recognize this is more than just for me. And I think that ethos is what's really life-giving. And so if you're starting your own business, if you have children, which is its own business, oh my gosh, that's 6 full-time jobs. If you're at your wit's end and you're trying to make something good, maybe posting a video, even if it's unpopular, might be a good idea. Might be a good idea to just leave a mark on the world objectively. Like, this will be in the internet. People can watch this, and you can have a sense that you're doing this not just for you, but there's lots of other people that are going through what you're going through, and you have a voice, and you have insights, and you have experience that other people may, in fact, will resonate with and feel a sense of community in. And so that's what this YouTube channel is going to be about. Okay, so I'm focusing on magic and making magic a career. And I'm not really sure career, yeah, I guess career. Magic's always been kind of a stepping stone for me. It's something that I wanted to build a business and have this business set up, and then have a little freedom in that business so that I can go and finish my degree. I was doing a double major in philosophy and psychology. I'd very much like to finish it. It's a hard thing to have resources to do that. Universities are not exactly built for being an adult and trying to pay bills and attend university. It's very, very challenging, especially at the undergraduate level. So regardless of the grand vision, and I'm not going to lay that out for you today, but magic is an avenue that I know I'm called to. I know I have talent at. I know that I can do. And so that's what I'm focusing on. I have another focus as well, and that's playing poker professionally. Poker is a supplementary income, and I'm not at a place right now where I can do that, obviously, just lacking resources. But it is something I'm working on. So you're going to see the focus being on magic, and then you're also going to see content from playing poker professionally. And I've really wrestled with whether or not I should post content about poker, primarily because, there's a dark side to poker. It is gambling. And we could talk about that in a Christian ethos, maybe a different video. I'm sure there's a lot of people that maybe have questions and concerns, and justifiably so. But the restraint I felt about posting content about poker was, I do not want to be a force of enabling stagnation. And I used poker to stagnate. For a point in my journey, I definitely did. And as I meditated on this, I thought to myself, if I could present content of what it's actually like trying to take poker, not as I hope I make it big someday or win this large amount of money very, very quickly, because that's not what poker is. If I showed it for what it actually is, what it actually means to make profit consistently, and also the reality of statistics, the reality of probability, the reality of survivorship bias, and what variance actually is, I think that will serve as not a force to enable people in their, let's say, unhelpful. If poker is part of your life and it's not serving you, my hope is this content will make that a reality, and it'll make it very, very crystal clear for you. If poker is in your life in a way that has the potential to enrich your life, that'll make it crystal clear too. Either way, it will make it clear, and I value clarity. And so I would like to provide that as well. Clarity. So those are the two avenues that I'm pursuing, and I'm very tired, I'm very overwhelmed, and I can tell you, just simply shooting this video, I do feel life, I do feel refreshed, I do feel renewed. So I'm going to post this, and we're going to keep going, and I'm going to have these updates just like this, and we're gonna post videos like this. I don't know the frequency yet. I haven't committed to that to you just quite yet, but it will be a regular thing, and we'll see where the YouTube channel goes from there. I do have thoughts about how to organize it. I'm going to keep those categories separate. I'm going to have a category for magic, and that's primarily going to be the focus. I'll have a category for poker. Maybe we'll organize it in playlists so you can see the content as it rolls out for those categories. Probably poker content is going to come out for quite some time. I haven't decided when. I'd like to get my magic business going first. And then there will be another playlist, I think, of just practical philosophy. And what I mean by that is exactly this video, because I do think, and the reason I was doing a double major in philosophy and psychology is the intersection of these two things. I think a therapist really is the modern day philosopher. I mean, you really are seeking a consulting service for an existential crisis. I mean, that is the domain of philosophy. It really is. And so psychology seems to be this merging of these two spaces, where there is a deep science and understanding the research and understanding different variations of human suffering and different pathways of treatment to ease that suffering. And that's a scientific question. But that's also a deeply philosophical question, because there's the nature of suffering. There's also the nature of easing suffering. There's also the question of what is life. And what I mean by that is I can talk to you, I can have a pulse, I can have all of these biological metrics that indicate to you that I am alive. I can have brain function and all these things that are, there are other people that have that expertise. But my argument to you in a philosophical sense is that does not mean I'm alive. to be alive, to feel life, to feel vibrance, to really feel like you being here is not a mistake, that you matter, that you can make an impact, and that actually objectively matters. That's life. And if you don't have that, I'm sorry to say, but I do believe this, you're a walking corpse. And I think you feel that. You know, like if you're really disconnected from yourself, you know you don't feel life. And you know what that feels like. I know what that feels like. And so that question of rebirth, of being a walking corpse, of being stressed beyond belief, of being exhausted, how do you find life? That's a philosophical question, and it has some science in there too, for sure, but that is the prospect of what I believe psychology is. And so I'm not giving myself the label of psychologist, obviously, because I haven't earned that, and that has legal ramifications as well. There are certifying bodies, and that is a good thing. And so I'm not here to provide any sort of mental health advice or even information, because I'm not qualified to do so. But I think practical philosophy is a great way to articulate what I'm describing, because what I'm going to be presenting here is philosophy. You know, philo, which is a Greek word for love, a particular kind of love. It's like a brotherly love, but I think more poignantly it has to do with allegiance and loyalty. And then Sophia is a Greek word for wisdom. Now, wisdom's a complicated word, right? Because what does it mean to be wise? What is wisdom? And when you look at the Greco-Roman tradition, classical Greece, is that the right term? I don't know the right term to use. Antiquity, I guess. You kind of get this ethos of wisdom being how to live a good life. But that also doesn't really help us, because what does it mean to live a good life? Is a good life an objective truth? In philosophical language, we'd say it holds an essential attribute. It has an essence. There's a truth to what a good life is that is independent of human beings, and we're trying to access that. Or is a good life something that we as individuals choose and above that create? We are the authors of it. We codify what a good life is. Do we generate that meaning? That's an interesting question. That's a philosophical question, right? Well, just that, philosophical loyalty to wisdom. And there, I think, lies the answer to that question. That I do believe a good life holds an essential quality, but above that, it meets us in our particularity. So here's another example to kind of get the nuance of what I'm talking about. You could think of this almost in terms of there's some legal, how do you say that, components to the etymology of the word wisdom. And you can think of it as setting a precedent. So the idea of a judge is confronted with a young boy who stole something. And whether or not they stole something is no longer a question. This young boy was caught red-handed. He definitely stole. Tons of eyewitnesses. You name the amount of evidence that would convince you beyond a reasonable doubt that this person is guilty, and it's there. They stole the thing. They confessed. Everybody saw. There was evidence. It's just, it happened, okay? And evidence beyond eyewitness testimony. I don't know. You figure out what that would satisfy for you. But there's evidence. So the question is, you're the judge now, and what sentence do you issue this young boy? I mean, do you cut off his hand because he stole? Do you give him a pat on the back and say, don't do it again, set him free? Do you murder him? Do you put him in jail? Do you send him community service? Like, what degree of punishment, what degree of sentence is correct? That is a question you will have to appeal to wisdom to answer. And therein lies the mysterious quality of wisdom, which is to say, every situation is different. And this is not something that you generate. Because if this person hurt you, or you're offended by it, and you let your emotions dictate, you create the sentence, it's not a wise sentence. It doesn't come from you. There's a source of surrender to a good that transcends your own need for good. It actually is a justice, not just for you, not just for the business owner who lost the property from that young boy who stole, but for the community as a whole, for everyone. Good for everyone. And the answer to that question is in conscience. It's a little voice that we feel. And the skill of opening yourself up, which is not precisely true, because yes, you have to open yourself up to hear that message, but you also have to transform. You also have to become the kind of person that consistently acts in this way, to allow a space for that conscience to be able to communicate to you what that good is. So there's a practice of how you live, and above that, it's an act of surrender to the group as a whole. And what's so interesting about that is I can describe to you that, but it's still so abstract because it is a transcendent value. I believe it does hold an essential property. It exists independent of us, but communicates to us. And the question, I suppose, is, and the kind of meta wisdom question is, what kind of person would you have to become to be able to hear that voice and act in alignment with that voice? And that's the philosophical journey. And so, using the term philosopher, I mean, if you are on a path to becoming the best version of yourself, if you're on this entrepreneurial path, if you're on this, whatever this path is that I'm describing, if you're overwhelmed and you're stretching and you're trying to expand, you are a philosopher. Philosophy isn't just reading books and sitting in an armchair smoking a cigar and contemplating what the world ought to be and what the world is and how those conflict or what is the relationship between those two. I mean, yeah, that's part of it, but you can only do that if you're in the world, if you're acting, if you're walking. And that's why I'm using the term practical philosophy. You gotta actually do it. And if you are a philosophy student in a modern sense, which is very strange when you think of the history of philosophy, it's not really been a time that to be a philosophy student that you sit in a classroom and got a grade after 4 months for a semester. That's insane. How do I grade you and your competency of some of the most brilliant minds in human history simply after 4 months? That's kind of a ridiculous idea. But you get the point. To read any of these thinkers, like for example, I'm very interested in a field called phenomenology, and I'm not going to unpack that for you in this video, but the idea simply is that you cannot understand these ideas if you don't see them in the world. You pick the thinker, no matter how difficult they are. Martin Heidegger is somebody I've read a lot of that I've just hit my head against the wall, being like, what is this person trying to say? What is this thing? And is this just something that Heidegger wrote because he wanted to piss off and ruin the lives of undergraduate students? I mean, that's a temptation you may feel when you're trying to read him, but no, this is something he saw in the world. He spilt ink over it because he saw it. And Dasein is something you can't understand unless you experience it. Experience is a key word in phenomenology, but you see it in the world. You actually see it. And I would argue all philosophy is this way, even ideas I personally don't agree with. I'm not a fan of anti-essentialism, yet I can't understand anti-essentialism unless I can see it in the world. I can actually see and look in the world and see, oh, these people aren't just wrong and sitting on armchairs and pontificating. No, like they actually saw something and they wrote what they saw. And I disagree with it. I don't think it's objectively real, but I can't understand it if I'm not willing to actually see it. And that's the only way that you can do philosophy, is be willing to see a thing. And you can only see a thing if you can walk in the world. And so, if I left you with one message for this video, it's simply this. You don't need to understand. You're overwhelmed. Life is stressful. You don't know how you're going to pay rent. You don't know how you're going to feed your family. You don't know how you're going to feed yourself. You don't know how you're going to do these things. You don't know how. You're asking these questions. You don't need to know how. You just need to start walking. Just start walking. and become and transform in your journey. As you walk, you will become the kind of person that will be able to hear this voice of wisdom. And as you transform, you'll be able to actually act in it. And as you act in it, you'll get better at hearing that voice, and you'll continually transform, and you'll also continually get the message of what to do, which is the exact spirit of how I'm filming this video. So, God bless you. You're not a mistake. You're not an accident. You're not watching this video by accident or by mistake. You're not going through these problems by accident or mistake. You are exactly the kind of person that is capable of overcoming these issues. You're exactly the kind of person that is capable of transforming and spreading joy in the world. You got this. Step 1, breathe. Step 2, realize what you're doing is tough. And step 3, find life. And once you find life, you'll just know what to do.